All right. Welcome everyone, whoever might be watching. My name is Michael Naylor, and I am the director of the Enneagram Center for Transformation and Change in South Portland, Maine. And today I've got a dear friend, Leah, a beloved Type 4, who's going to tell us her story and how she survived her fourness and became enlightened along the way. And so anyway, just great to have you here. And just why don't we just open up and just introduce and say what's true for you? What have you noticed? And I'll ask questions along the way, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
So appreciate the work you do. So, let me just put that right out. Well, type 4, as with all of us, I had no idea even what an Enneatype was when I was growing up.
Hmm.
But if I look back, way back, at my childhood or more like adolescent years is really when I began to, uh, I could say in retrospect, that's when I can see the type 4 begin to manifest.
Hmm.
So as an adolescent, um, I felt, people used to talk about me, people that I, uh, meet now who might have gone to high school with me, for example, used to say you were so stuck up. I guess I was kind of attractive and, some of the boys wanted to like get to know me. And I was like they thought I was stuck up. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. It was like, are you kidding? So, I was both terrified because my self-image was so different than what people saw or thought they saw. Outside, I kind of projected, I was pretty and smart, at least till I dropped out of school, but inside, I was just like really searching. I couldn't, I felt lost. I felt like I didn't know who I was. And I wanted to know who I was. It was really a central question. And I felt like there was something deeply flawed about me.
Hmm.
That's looking back, that's where I began to, it was like, and I remember I would spend hours reading psychology books to figure out what was wrong with me.
Hmm.
Because it really felt like there was something, if I could just find out what was wrong with me, life would be okay,
Yeah.
or I would be okay in life. And
Hmm.
of course, I didn't get too far with that. So, but it began my search. It began a very deep search to figure out both who I was, and it took me, of course, to all sorts of existential things and spiritual things um, and different psychological things, readings, to really figure out both what was wrong, how could I fix whatever was wrong with me, and um, who was I? Who was I? And yeah, go ahead.
Well, so when you were contemplating this question, who am I?
Hmm.
Did you notice there were a lot of other people around you who were contemplating that too, or did you notice early on that you were sort of like the only one doing it? And you felt, I mean, was there uh, and the reason I ask is that question was so strong in me, and I thought somebody could tell me, and I kept taking the question to people, and they would say something like, "Well, you're just one of those deep thinkers or something," which didn't help at all, right? It's like, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble." But I wondered how you experienced that when through teenage or even as early as childhood. I remember for myself, I just felt this intense longing for something I couldn't put my hands on when I was just a little guy, and I didn't know what it was. Like, what's this pain? And so I would try to express it or find something in my outer world to kind of make it feel better. So I don't. Did you notice a longing also? Was there like
a complete longing, and no, I didn't have any way to connect with anybody who, I mean, looking back, it would have been such a gift if I'd found a teacher, not a psychologist, because it was a deeper question.
Mm.
Am I on a psychological level? I mean, the psychological level was trying to figure out how to fix myself.
Mhm.
But the question that was deeper was that sense of who am I?
Yes.
And it wasn't like I wanted to know I'm a good this or a, nice this, or I should be, a doctor when I grow up, or, those didn't do it.
Yes.
It was a much deeper thing so no, I really felt very, very alone with it. And that began a search, which I did not. And so the answers really had to come. I mean, my only reference points were books, spiritual books, psychological books, existential books. I became kind of obsessed with those. And so, yeah, in my family, there was very, very little sense of being an individual. With my mother, I was kind of an object of, it's like, and she would always say, I wish you were like Harriet Cates, our neighbor. I can picture her, basically. You're just kind of quiet and what use are you to me? So I felt like a complete alien. So in my house, there was very, very, very nothing really in terms of even a sense of recognizing any sort of individual sense of who I was, never mind this depth and uniqueness, wasn't there. But yeah, go ahead.
And did you notice that you seem to be more sensitive to things going on and people and their hurt and their woundedness and just and that I guess that the reason I ask is that's one of the things I noticed is things really affected me on an emotional level, but my mother kept trying to calm me down, saying it's not that bad, and I go and I cry. But how did you work with your sensitivity?
Yeah, well, partially I withdrew. That was kind of a way, but I guess there were two ways. I can say that I was yes, I noticed my sensitivity. I always call myself, unlike twos who love to take care of. I did not particularly want to be in the role that I keep being in, then, now, along the way. And part of that is I couldn't ignore the pain, like in my family. I just kept being put in or I can't say I'd be put in a role. Obviously, I chose in some way. I felt like I was just saving everybody in the family from themselves, from each other. And I wasn't very effective at it, I have to say, but I couldn't just sit there and ignore how much suffering there was. So a lot of my work, psychological work, even continuing today, is recognizing how much I abandoned myself because I couldn't ignore the pain that was there. So,
Well, it's an interesting thing. One of the traditional stories that's told about the type 4s that they were looking for a rescuer, but in my family, I was trying to rescue everyone.
Yes.
I saw my mothers, my fathers, my brothers, my sisters, and I was just trying to help them. So I wasn't looking for a rescuer. And I've talked to a lot of 4s who said, oh yeah, gosh, I felt like I was my mother's counselor. And, and I would do counsel and I'd try to help her sort things out. 10 years old, I don't know anything. And I'm, but there I was. And then that role of sort of being a helper has continued throughout my life. I've become
Yes.
less absorbed in it and maybe more objective and skillful, but still just like called to people suffering. So sounds like yeah.
I'm so glad you said that,
Mhm.
because I would read stuff about fours,
Yeah.
being rescuers, and they wanted to say small and be chill. Yeah, I'm like, really? Not my story.
Not mine either.
Yours,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
no, quite a few fours I talked to were took on that role. It's like if you look at the arrows, four goes to two, which is the helper, and I was kind of like a mother in my family, and that was just a strong orientation. And I
yeah.
would forget myself. It's like learning to go in my direction or what resonated with my soul. It took me a long time to start to get onto that because I would be so drawn into other people's suffering.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Actually, that's really good. It's really good for me to hear that.
Yeah,
Not that, not that I don't feel empathy that you
yeah,
did that, because I understand it from my own experience.
yeah,
But that's good to know that it doesn't have to, that some fours, sure, would want to be rescued,
yeah,
but other fours, you and me, obviously, and other people are drawn to rescue,
yeah,
are
yeah.
drawn to rescue, not even as an identity. I didn't feel it as an identity. I didn't feel like this is a great thing. Wow, this really gives me, narcissistic supplies that, it
Mhm.
was more on the level of what else can I do? I don't,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think the one thing that sort of made sense to me is that fours have a natural orientation to spot the unowned suffering of people. So it's
Oh,
like I can feel and sense their suffering, and they don't get it. I know they're suffering, and I want to. So I felt like, gosh, I don't want them just to suffer idly and not have hope or support. And so anyway, that just is what that was a magnet for me. Still, I still am moved by being able to help people move through stuff. But when I was 10 years old, it wasn't particularly good for me. I could have been playing, having more fun.
finding out who you were, for example.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So,
yeah.
so how? So what has as you were starting on this journey, and it sounds like you did a lot of study, which I am familiar with myself. What are there any particular things that sort of unfolded that helped you to sort of get more clarity, or anything that comes to mind around? Oh, this turn in the road really helped. I mean, I'm just curious about how that all unfolded for you.
Yeah, there were a couple of things. One was a negative thing,
Hmm.
which was, when I kind of stopped going to school and my parents finally caught on that, something was wrong, here, um, and sent me to a psychologist. And I went about 5 times, and this guy just completely was so clueless. I mean, in my, it was like, he was kind of the Freudian, noticing what I was wearing and interpreting it. And I'm rolling my eyes in there. So I didn't continue. But what it did, it really planted a seed of, I can do this better. I can do this better.
Yeah.
And what I meant by that at that time, and of course I ended up, first being a psychologist and then going on to be a teacher in a spiritual path. But what it meant to me was that I could see people, and I could, here's type 4, right? I could see people, I
Yeah.
could honor their uniqueness,
Yeah.
and I could connect with them in a way that helped them become themselves,
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
them individuate into who they were, not who they were supposed to be. So to get beneath the surface, and of course that gift,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, I think is probably one of my own particular gifts
Mhm.
in terms of how I serve.
Yes.
That I can, see, uh, I can hook into who a person is, their uniqueness, their particularity, and in some way hold that and support that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, that's, yeah, I can feel that in my own depths. And it's an interesting evolution that I noticed is that for some fours, as they become more in contact with their own unique essence, then they start seeing it in everyone and wanting to support that and create space for people to land in it and be healed by it and comforted by it. So that's certainly something that moves me deeply. And I haven't heard a lot of fours talk about this in particular, but I do know healthy fours will say, I just love the uniqueness of everyone. It just, that's one of my, that's like the banquet that I eat at. It's just so awesome. And that's been my experience too. It's just like, wow, there's just so many variations. And so, yeah, yeah. So I can,
yes, yes. So yeah, and it would make sense that it's a four thing that one would, uh, and a healthy four or an, a tool for, you honor that in others,
mm,
uh, and at the same time really love it when other people see it and respect it and value it and nourish it in you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just like there's just such a beautiful mutuality that occurs when that's just so fulfilling or filling of my own soul. Um, so when you were coming up through the challenges of being a teenager and early 20s or even being a little girl, was was the theme of envy, is that something that touched you at all? Like somebody else got the right instruction, but you didn't? Not all fours have this. I know I did. I always felt like something's missing here, and you all seem to have it, and I don't, and therefore I hate you. But that's okay. That cheers me up. What can I say? But has that been something you've had to navigate? That a quality of envy, the passion of envy?
It's a good question. I was thinking about that because I was just reading, kind of honing up on foreland again,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
I know it's.
virtues and all that. And I mean, I can certainly feel it, right? Particularly, people that uh, had, I mean, I can remember um, really feeling envious of kids or other people who had warm, loving families, for, for example, families that actually they loved and, that got love in and got nourishment in. I can remember being very envious. Or if somebody, uh, early on, I was very competitive. That kind of got lost when I got to adolescence and began to just feel like there was I began to withdraw. But before that, as a younger, before adolescence, I can remember I had to be the best. I had to get, if good old Marjorie, my friend, was getting, more accolades than me, I wasn't so happy about that. Wasn't so happy about that. Or if
Yeah,
somebody won at a race that I was in, a sprint, I wasn't so happy about that.
yeah.
So early on, I did feel a competitiveness more than envy.
Hmm.
The
Okay.
envy, I think, came later when I began to feel the lacks or how I perceived the lacks in my own life,
Hmm.
things I couldn't fulfill, the things that I wanted, the attention that I might have wanted, or the opportunities I might have wanted, or the love I might have wanted
Hmm.
that I didn't feel like I was getting. So the envy was for very particular things. But yes, it was there
Oh,
for sure.
Okay. And the sometimes and you've mentioned this a bit, but the sense of, I know for myself as a four, I always had this feeling like it was a little bit different. I was a little on the outside of things, and it was sort of uncanny. I could, part of it was I felt so affected by people that I really went interior,
Mhm.
and it's like things just got in. It's like too much, and so I would withdraw, and plus I didn't know how to talk to human beings. The only place that I could really function was I was a competitive athlete. So I,
Right.
I didn't have to talk there. I just had to shoot the ball and put it in the hole or hit the ball, and it was like I was, that's where I had some freedom. But
Yes.
but after the game, I couldn't talk to anybody. It was like, oh God, it just like I can remember in classes in high school where you'd say, Michael Naylor, what would you like to say about this subject? And I'd say, absolutely nothing, thank you. But anyway, it took me a long time to come out of my shell. I think I was 28 or 29 before I started sort of feeling a little comfort. And anyway, is that something that you were familiar with? That sense of,
Oh my God. Oh God. Absolutely.
hmm,
Yeah. It's still part of my self-image. It's like I needed to feel, if I didn't feel welcomed, then I would just completely withdraw.
yeah,
So there was a huge self-rejection and
hmm,
assuming that other people would reject me. And it was visceral. It wasn't like a thought. It
yeah,
was just in my body.
yeah,
I would like, it was that thing where, the other kids thought I was stuck up. It was like I inside
hmm,
was terrified of rejection
yeah,
and assumed that I was not particularly lovable and
hmm,
that um, I would not be wanted.
yeah,
I think I, lived life,
hmm,
it's still a part of me,
yeah,
um, less so, but
hmm,
it's taken a really, really, really long time to get a sense that people actually
hmm,
not just like me, but really enjoy me and
yeah,
enjoy who I am. And,
yeah,
so my go-to has been to withdraw.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's really taken some work to um, be able to reach out
yeah.
and to be uh, and again, it's easier, an introvert. I will never love parties.
Me neither.
Maybe if I have some envy, it's there, around people that have just such an easy time reaching out and relating and, collecting all these wonderful friends in a genuine way. It's like, really? I'm like,
I don't
and
know.
right, so it's,
How do they do it? I don't know how they do it.
I know.
Because when I teach, I'm pretty outgoing and affable. But
Yeah,
once the workshop's over,
yeah,
like,
same.
how you doing? Oh, I gotta go home.
I gotta go
I'm exhausted. I need to go isolate for a while, a couple days. I'll be back. Yeah, it's really interesting.
It's really interesting. Yeah, it's why I need to be near the ocean.
Yeah,
It's a real
absolutely.
good place alone to recharge. So,
Yeah. Well, I wonder, have you ever thought about what your wing is? Like, has a four with a five wing, four with a three wing? Is that anything that's been a part of your?
yeah, yeah, kind of. I mean, I can see both, but probably given if I look at my history and
Hmm.
where I go into the withdrawal,
Yeah.
I would guess more of a five wing, although people wouldn't say that
Yeah.
um, looking at me. you know,
Yeah.
and
I.
I can, I am out there, but I'm out there in
Mhm.
terms of things that are more structured, like that's one reason I love to teach.
Hmm.
Love to is it's a way, so I have no problem being in front of, let's say, like you.
Mm.
many people.
Yeah.
Doesn't faze me in the least.
Yeah.
Um, but as I say, put me in a party and it's like, no, thank you.
I don't speak the language. I don't.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I would probably guess more leaning
Hmm.
toward 5,
Yeah.
in terms of but in later years here, there's definitely more, what can I say about the 3? Yeah, I mean, the the wanting to be out there.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
can remember, for example, here I wrote my second book, novel, and uh, it was so painful to have to reach out and say, "Hey guys, look what I did." It was like it was like, no, it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. A friend would drag me to bookstores and go, "All right, stand right in back of me and say, hold up your book, you smile." So in
I,
that way, probably 5, but a wannabe 3. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I
Oh,
have a very similar thing. If
yeah.
it's like, don't give me too much light. Like if you liked it, that's great, but don't tell me or don't, but yeah, get really shy and sort of like, ooh. But yeah, that's a tough one for me too.
Yeah, I know. But at the same time, wanting it.
Yes,
I want it.
yeah,
You
I
know,
do. I do.
if
There's some,
came along, it would be like, yeah, great.
yeah, yeah, it's quite an interesting polarity
Yeah,
internally from myself.
yeah, me
Uh,
too. Me too.
well, when you think about, you know, um, occasionally, well, quite often, people who have 4s for kids, they say, "What do I do with my son or my daughter? They get so affected by things, and they feel like I don't get them, and I just want to help them, and they just they say you don't get me, and it's just so painful, and uh, and I go, well, just be kind and notice they're having a hard time. Don't try to fix them because that drives 4s crazy. Do not try to give them information on how they could get better because then they really know you don't get them and they'll have to be more dramatic to show. But and so I was thinking, in the course of my life, I've had to do a lot of inner work to sort out what's felt like all these kind of emotional complexes until they finally started to settle and relax, and I could take a breath and go, phew, wow, I'm glad I lived a long time. I don't know if I was ever going to make it, right? But I wondered if you had gone through, what your sort of journey was like in terms of your going into understanding the complexities. I don't know if 4s are born with more emotional, psychological complexities, but they sure seem to be required to do something about it. Other types, I think, can sort of jump over them. But
Right.
anyway, that's
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the thing I've noticed about some 4s, and not me, of course, can I think you do need to do a lot of self-reflection. It's true.
Hmm.
And a lot of sorting through um, all the stuff of the psyche. I think it's very important. I would say it's important for everybody, but I think 4s are certainly more drawn to it, as far as I can tell, than many other types. Uh, but it can also be a trap. If you just begin to use that instead, what do I mean by that? Begin to use it to identify with,
Yes.
begin to use it to endlessly trying to figure out what's wrong with me, how can I fix myself, how can I be better,
Mm-hmm.
who am I?
Mm-hmm.
It's not where the answer is going to come from.
Mm-hmm.
For me anyway, I should
Mm-hmm.
say personally for me,
Mm-hmm.
I needed to, I certainly needed to do that work. But for me, it had to be in the context of a deeper spiritual holding.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it began to just spin and become, endless process.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like it's like it has a contagious sort of velocity in one's psyche and it's like, oh, at one point I'm going to get the answer here, and it's familiar, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
And I know, and so I was just thinking to myself, what helped me drop down, sort of beneath that current, and land deeper in myself.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that was very helpful was learning to sense my body, to inhabit my body. That seemed to shift the magnetic lure of this imagination machine and
Yes.
the identity that's like, I'm seeking, I'm not getting it, and my heart's hurting. And but there's something about that learning to sense my body more deeply it's like gave me eyes to see the pattern and not get identified with it.
Yeah.
So that was helpful. And then also meditation, developing quiet mind helped a lot too. It's like I had another porthole to look out of when this stuff was going on. So yeah, and then just so many conversations with people who helped me see I was swirling, and just reframe things. So was there, like, when you talk about a deeper spirituality, what does that mean for you?
What it meant for me, and again, this has been a guiding thing in my life, that along with uh, the psychological, and God knows it's important, and God knows I picked always spiritual paths that had a great deal of looking at and understanding psychological patterns,
Mm-hmm.
and still do. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like that work is done.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's done and then something will pop up and it's like, oh my God, how didn't I see that?
I missed that for 45 years. How could that be?
I know. It's like, my father died about 3 months ago. And, I thought, I was sad and all that kind of stuff. And, he was very old, but still,
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
was a loss. And I
Yeah.
think I've done all my psychological work on this, there's nothing left. And then I had a session with my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And very soon after he passed,
Mm-hmm.
and holy geez, the amount of anger that I had stuffed was pretty amazing. So
Yeah.
it's not like that really ends. It's just that there's a difference between doing that to understand and move through,
Mm-hmm. Move
rather
through.
than it becoming a kind of automatic go-to. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, uh, spiritual paths, the various ones that I have participated on and have ended up in, mostly in, kind of in one path, but quite open to many others.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it seems to me was where I began to feel a sense of identity that wasn't based in all the sort of mental imaginings and who am I and my history. I'm not my history.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a dropping into a deeper sense of a more, what can I say, eternal and infinite sense of who I am.
Yeah.
And kind of an eternal, infinite space, not a space, but an identity that was beyond all the stuff, all the stuff. So that began to settle something in me. It didn't solve all my problems or make my life all that more wonderful and easy,
Yeah.
but it did settle a kind of, still does. It's not like the work is done.
Yeah.
But I could recognize when something in me settled.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the question of who am I,
Mm-hmm.
didn't get answered in terms of like, this is it forever.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt a deep settledness in my soul
Mm.
that was different.
Yeah, and I've been trying, so I can identify it with this, and that kind of settling, something it's like for me, it's a quality of deep inner stillness
Yeah.
that I go, oh, okay, nothing, don't have to do so much about all of this stuff. There's just something, and I relate to it as the story around equanimity developing. I often think of it as a, like underneath everything is this sort of, um, it's like a radiant energy field. It's just there. I couldn't prove it, but I know what it feels like. And then I'm thinking, well, there must be 4 steps that a person could take to get there, right? Like, okay, now tell me the 4-step book you have coming out on how to get down in there. Right? But it's not quite like that. It's like all of these things I've done somehow created a space to open up, and
Yes.
which I'm grateful for.
Yes.
But I don't really know how it happened. But it did. I mean, I know, and I'm grateful. It's like, just feels very fulfilling and calm and easy, and just, and like you say, uh, that so many layers to the onion. I figure, okay, it's probably going to take 4 or 5 more lifetimes, but I've got a good start, right? I've got a good start. So
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned the equanimity, because I was thinking about that, because at least for myself, it's not like everything in my personality is solved and my life is settled and, I sit around with nothing in my mind but peace and calm. I mean, let's just dispel that notion.
yes,
But
yes.
there is a deeper sense, like you were talking about, of an inner settledness that is there, even with, and in a certain way, not touched by all the strum and drum, which is certainly still there. Just to be clear about that.
Absolutely. Wow. It's got a life of its own. It just likes to run and see if it can hook me.
Yeah.
And which it does from time to time. So yeah, I definitely, that one of the kind of images that comes to mind for me in terms of my journey is I think of, like, if I was to think of myself as a diamond with many facets, and that inner work is about cleaning these off so that there's more light that can get in. And I figured, well, maybe I've got 19 to 20% of the facets cleaned off. And I can notice, yeah, there's work to be done, and I've made progress, but it's not going to be all handled in this lifetime, that's for sure. But there's just that sense of, because like yourself, I'm always amazed. Like, seems like every year there's some new thing that opens up, and I go, how did I miss that? And maybe I was even judging somebody for their weird behavior, and it turns out, and I think, wow, there is no end to this. It's just like a spiral down, and so I'm a little less rattled by it, but still, it's always shocking. I'm just like, it's like somebody took the haze away from my eyes, and I'm going, oh my God, that's amazing. So
Yes.
yeah.
What I've noticed in myself is that what began my search was trying to fix myself. What's wrong with me, what's missing.
Yep.
That's no longer there, right? The search now is much more, what is there to discover? What is there to discover? In this, from my perspective anyway, we're very infinite beings, and discovery can, is endless. I mean, the cosmos is endless, and we'll continue on an external level to discover many things over, over thousands of years. So it's gone from, I got to figure this out so I can, be whole, fix myself or whatever, to, wow, what an amazing process.
Yeah.
Who I am, who we are is so vast and so multifaceted. So there's, so the orientation has changed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thankfully.
Well, I noticed that, what I love about working with the Enneagram, and people say, do you get bored? I said, how could I possibly get bored? Every time there's like a new revelation on a new level. It's just amazing. It's, you know, it's endless, and just a joy, and quite spectacular in certain ways. So yeah, it's definitely a different. It's nice to not be trying to figure out what's wrong with me. Like,
Exactly.
hallelujah for that. And
Oh, yeah. And how wonderful that you bring that that aspect of the four to
you know,
your,
yeah, well,
to your work.
yes, yes,
Uh,
it's, yeah, I'm grateful that I can be
yeah.
in that place. And I feel such a gift. So, in terms of inner work, what else pops up for the beloved four? Like, letting go of that wounded, hurt four, and the one who I can uh, remember feeling like, there was like this dual thing that would go on. I would see people out in the world and I go, oh, they're so shallow. If I if I'm ever that shallow, just shoot me. Okay, you have permission to shoot me, and I'll be in my apartment doing suicidal poetry, and I'll be effing real. But I'm not going to be like those idiots out there. And then I would go, how do they possibly have happiness in this barbecue with their family at Thanksgiving? But that story has disappeared. It's just like I'm just amazed at what people are doing. I don't feel that kind of the shallow judgment has disappeared.
Disappeared.
Yeah, which is nice. It's a lot more joyful existence when it's
I
not.
bet.
Yeah, yeah. I thought I was going to have to just wake the world up, and I realized I don't really need to do that. So
You're not going to be the proselytizer that
I don't sell anything. I'm not a salesman anymore. I was, and then I realized nobody's listening to me, so I gave that one up. So tell me a little bit about your. We hear about the four, their love of creativity or beauty, or
Oh, yeah.
what's been your experience?
My experience, I discovered early on, because I was a more withdrawn four, that really what saved me, I really, really feel that what saved me
Mm.
is my own creative expressions, which of course nobody knew about because I put them in a drawer for the next 40 years. But I remember, very early on, um, I look back now, at some of my writing and I was a songwriter. Of course, nobody knew. Um, People are still astounded when I bring out, but being able to express myself for me, mostly in writing, whether it was songs or poetry, and then later on books, and then through teaching, just feels like uh, it has been a gift and a joy and a necessity. It's like where my own, where I emerge and can mirror back, it's like it reflects back to me something about me. So writing became my mirror, where I didn't get very recognized in my family. And then because I was so withdrawn, of course I didn't get recognized because nobody knew what the heck was going on in there. But I knew. So yeah, creative. It's still very, very, probably the most central thing in my life is co-creating with whatever the muse is,
Yeah.
whatever comes through me.
Mm.
Being open to that is just, I think, probably one of the gifts of my life is it, and the necessities
Yeah.
to do that. To
Interesting. Well, I was just thinking my experience with creativity, because dance was a lot of what I did, but also writing and teaching. And there's like something about in the creative act that it's like it almost felt like it created a substance inside me that it was like, oh, there I am. There's this like quality of being that came from my efforts to write or to dance or to do choreography but this or and often when I teach, it feels like it's kind of like doing a painting, just seeing how everybody. It's like wow, and it's as if something utilizes the best of
Yeah.
whatever I've acquired, and oftentimes I go, I where'd that come from? I don't even. But thank you. That worked, right? But each time there's something in my core that feels like it's gotten almost more palpable in terms of my sense of being. But it's not like I'm being. It's not external at all. I don't look like a lot of fours go through a period where they dress themselves up to try to find their creativity through their clothes, and of course I did that. Now I just look like somebody is a golfer who
Michael.
need to get out on the links. I don't even like golf, but I look like a golfer. Who knew? I was used to wearing all these stripes and everything, and now I'm just
Tee up.
my mother would be proud. I'm telling you. I scared her for many years with some of the things I wore. Oh God. But yeah. So anyway, I can really I can hear that in myself too. So yeah. Well, anything else you'd like to share about your journey as a four?
My four journey.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just one thing that was important, but just to speak, this isn't what I want to share, but you know, not all fours like to look dress up. I wear, kind of the most ordinary comfort, I guess, is more my modality than dressing up or whatever, using myself as
a
but
representative of
yeah,
beauty. Yeah.
but the thing I do want to share that was important, just to put out in here, was the shadow. That it does seem like, and I don't know if this is true of all fours, of course, but for me, one of the big pieces of work I needed to do and recognize is being a canary in a coal mine. It was like I would go into situations
Mm-hmm.
and kind of see and feel the undercurrents that were there,
Yeah.
and could not, I mean, they were painful, particularly when I saw other people being hurt or untruths being told or lies or deceit it's like, and I couldn't be quiet about it. And it got me in a lot of, and at the same time, I didn't know how to handle uh, other people wanting to, not wanting to see that and making me the kind of pariah, because I could see things that were, of course, threatening to other people. And it's taken a lot for me to not think I'm the pariah, but to recognize it as a gift rather than a curse. and and how to use that capacity, of seeing and feeling the undercurrents of things in a way that I can use in a more mature way rather than a, reactive way, or not being clear about myself when the projections of badness or negativity or wrongness were projected on me, and not being able to separate from those. So that's been a big piece of my own work. Again, it's not true for all fours, but it was certainly a huge part of my that difficult, difficulty and gift. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that just in my experience, I felt this incredible obligation to be emotionally honest about what if I was seeing something that was off or dark or dishonest. And early on, I was not skillful. I just would drop the nuclear bomb on the table, and everything would fly, and I would go, "Wow!" And people would,
Exactly.
and it was. I mean, there was a lot of bloody moments where my skillfulness was not good, and I just couldn't stop. It's like I almost felt like whatever I was seeing, I must say it, and it was like a compulsion almost. And so it didn't cheer people up very much. Like,
The life of the party.
I mean, I can remember confronting people. I should have just, I
Right.
just didn't know better. So
Right.
I just, um, and since then I'm still really sensitive to undercurrents. I mean, it feels, and so fortunately, I'm not in a situation where I need to say anything about it, because I work solo and I don't. But yeah, that's one way I dealt with it. It's like I just need to work alone because
Right.
human beings are driving me crazy, and I keep saying these things,
I
but
know they're BS. It was just not.
yeah, and I felt, and I can remember this one woman came up to me. I mean, she said, "My husband, every time he's a type 4, every time he's attracted to a woman, he feels like he must tell me."
Oh God.
I said, "Well, send him to me. I'll help him. He
Yeah.
needs to know when to shut up and when to speak." And but
Yeah.
it's just like I must tell you the truth. And
Let's tell you the truth. Right.
yeah,
Right.
so I can
Yeah.
definitely relate to definitely. And Donna, my wife, would say, "Yeah, well, she always gets a little bit worried, like, don't say anything, don't say anything." I won't. So
Still
yeah.
means yes. Comes with maturity and a lot of wounds.
And that's right. That's right. I know how to hold my cards now. So, yeah. What was
Yeah.
it? Was there anything else you wanted to say? Was there another thing or,
I think that's good. I mean, there's lots I could say, but
well,
enough.
before, why did that, yeah, it's funny. I can remember, I was teaching, the part one with Russ, and we had this thing where we'd spend 3 hours on each type, and we were doing the type 4. And all of a sudden we realized we'd spent 8 hours on the type 4. We said, we could go on for a couple more days. The fours are so interesting, and everybody was engaged. And
I
but
know. That's one way to put it. Yes.
the best stories, you can't make this stuff up, right? So
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
well,
Yes, we are. When you get below the surface. Yeah.
then you go, whoa, there's a kingdom in
Wow.
here. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you sharing and giving us a look at your journey, and feel a kindred spirit in terms of some
Yes.
of the themes that go. It's always good to find a kindred spirit. And I can remember, oftentimes fours will say, "No one ever gets me," and my group G teacher says, "Well, don't worry, no one ever will. Don't worry about it." How could anybody get you? They're not inside.
Right.
Okay. So,
Exactly.
well, look, I will, when I get this done, I'll send you the link. And
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, it'll be just great to see you. To send you lots of love and appreciation for,
Great
you've
to
helped
see
me
you
many,
too.
many times, and look forward to connecting in person.
Me too. Me too.
All
Soon, I
right.
hope. So
Yes.
take
All right.
care.
Yes. Much love. Bye now.
Bye.
Here we go.